A lot of times what happens, whether we're in a tucked pelvis or we are overly arched in our back, is we've got some massive restriction somewhere. So it could be deep in our glutes. We could be really tight in our pelvic floor. Again, you guys, I can't talk about back pain without talking about pelvic floor. It's not possible because it's all so interconnected. Hey everyone, welcome to Core Connections, your health, fitness, and wellness podcast designed so you can take control of your health to live the active life you love. I'm your host, Erica Zeal, and for 20 years now, I've been helping women live a healthier, active life pain-free. And if you are ready to say goodbye to those annoying aches and pains, incontinence, heel diastasis recti, then join me inside my Core Rehab program, where you can join others who've experienced life-changing results so you too can live an active, pain-free life or work on prevention. I love the conversation around prevention. But not only do you get access to learn my exact techniques that I've been changing lives with every single day for many, many, many years now, you also get access to come on and ask me your questions during my monthly live group coaching call that I do every single month inside of our program. So head on over to corerehabprogram.com to learn more. Again, that's corerehabprogram.com. Okay, you guys. So today I am super excited for this conversation. I'm going to try to stay on track here. I know that I think of things as I start talking, but I really today so excited to talk about Pilates for your back, how Pilates can change your life. And I'm going to kind of really break this down for you. So when I first was starting to do this, I was like, we have to do this podcast talking about Pilates for your back because it's been amazing, not only for myself, but for so many women and men that I have worked with, whether in person or through my core rehab program, for example, or my prenatal program for that matter, right? Because a little squirrel side note here, right? Pregnancy, I feel like one of the biggest things that comes along with pregnancy conversation is, oh, well, it's normal to have back pain, right? It's normal. Well, maybe to a degree, but we've helped so many women during pregnancy get rid of back pain. And that just makes me so excited because when we're in pain, life just isn't as fun as it can be. We're not usually as happy because we have pain slowing us down. So I get really excited about this because I've helped change so many people's lives for the better. So when we start talking about Pilates for your back and how it can be good for your back, I was like, let's dig up some research. Let's talk about some of the research side of this just to start this conversation. And the interesting thing that showed up as I was pulling this up, because I remember years ago, I don't remember what year it was, you guys, but when we first started seeing a little research coming out talking about how Pilates can actually prevent some people from having to have back surgery. And to me, that was massive, right? Starting to hear that coming from the medical world, I thought was so phenomenal because I was seeing that with my clients, okay? And as well as were so many other Pilates instructors. So as I'm pulling up research and I'm reading it, the overarching message or conclusion, I should say, that I was reading from this research, compiled research, right, is that it wasn't 100% conclusive that Pilates, can for sure get rid of back pain, or that Pilates was better than something else. And we're talking about that. Don't stop listening here. We got to unpack some of this stuff. And I did an episode a while back talking about kind of the same scenario with our pelvic floor research as well. So again, we can kind of nitpick research and find probably about anything that we want to back up what we're doing. And so I want to talk about why we might find research that isn't as conclusive as we'd like to see. Okay, it comes down to variables. Research is hard. I would love you guys to do research on what I'm teaching. I've talked to a professor about it. I know she'd love to do it too, but there's so many variables that we would have to test for. It makes researching really, really hard when there's so many moving pieces. Everyone's dealing with maybe something a little bit different. You could take 10 people that have similar back pain, but it could all be from something a little bit different, but likely there's a common foundational theme, okay? So overall, the research says that yes, Pilates can be really good for back pain for sure, right? Versus not doing anything, but also can other exercise. So really at the end of the day, it's about learning to strengthen your body. right? Because a lot of back pain or even pain in general comes from imbalances in our body. It's not just, oh, it's from our back. And those of you that have listened to me for a long time probably know where I'm going to go with this is when someone has back pain and they come see me, I don't start at their back. I'm like, okay, you've got back pain. Great. Let's see what's going on in the rest of your body. What is your core function looking like? What is your pelvis looking like? How are we standing? How are we breathing? How are we walking? There's so many moving pieces to it. But I did love to see that research is saying, yes, we need to be moving our bodies to help with back pain because not moving is not making your back pain any better, even though that's what your body tries to tell you. And I will say, caveat to everything we talk about, there's always going to be outliers for things, right? And yes, every once in a while, back surgery is a necessity. So I want to be clear that I'm not saying, oh, never, ever, ever. But if we can prevent back surgery, for example, from someone who's been told they have to have back surgery, that's the only way to fix their problems, then we just need to be more open-minded than that. But there is always a time and a place for it. Okay. But I'm talking general here, in general, and what I've seen in working with so many people with back pain over the years. So, back to kind of the research, right? So it's not super conclusive that Pilates is, say, better than anything else, but we need to be stronger in our body and the right kind of strong and make sure we're not overusing our back. And that's really what's causing a lot of back pain is we don't know how to effectively strengthen our core. And I'll take it a step farther and say we don't know. A lot of us, if we have pain or we want to learn how to prevent pain, we need to learn how to effectively strengthen our deep core, which includes our pelvic floor, which means we need to learn how to breathe better, not just belly breathe. We need to learn how to truly diaphragmatic breathe, breathing out to our ribs and into our back. I mean, in my Pilates classes now, almost every single session, I've got clients just relaxing and breathing into their back through their nose. And I know sometimes it seems like, wait, but we're not moving. I know we are going to move, but sometimes we also have to learn how to release and relax that tissue. And then we've got to start moving and strengthen. So it's this balance here. Okay. There's a balance, but the common theme is from research. Yes, we need to be learning how to strengthen our core better. Side note on this, something that is probably a big pet peeve of mine, only because I've not seen great outcomes from it for a lot of people, is when we think like, okay, we could see research that says, okay, we need to strengthen our core. And we think, oh, we're going to go do a bunch of crunches or really intense abdominal exercises. But if you're dealing with back pain or you want to prevent back pain for that matter, doing a bunch of crunches is likely only putting pressure downward on your pelvic floor and into your back. So the pressure is going the wrong direction and we're not really getting into the deeper layers of our core, right? We might be working our rectus abdominals, those six-pack muscles, and our obliques. And I'm not going to say there's anything wrong with that, right? But it comes down to balance. So I've seen people that are dealing with back pain and they're still doing a bunch of crunches. And in my world, that does not get people out of pain. Now, I'm not saying you can't ever do crunches, but we need to work on our foundation to work back up to that. And we don't want to rely on crunches to strengthen our core. Like flat out, I'm not saying again, you can't ever do it. I teach it periodically, but I teach it in a way that is really good for strengthening your deep core and addressing pelvic floor function as well, and not just putting that pressure into your low back. And here's the other thing that comes out of the research, right? It's definitely saying movement is better than not moving. And I couldn't agree more with that. And I cannot tell you guys how, in all my years, again, 20 years of working with people, how many times I get a text or a message from a client that's like, oh, Erica, I threw my back out yesterday, or, doing something super simple, gardening, or I leaned over to pick something up or whatever it is. And they're like, so I'm not going to come in and do Pilates today. And my answer to them always is, no, you actually should come in because I can help you to rebalance your body and get you out of, again, usually it's the muscles just spasming because our deep core wasn't on effectively in the right way. Okay. So kind of starting to realize that movement is better. And again, when we say movement, we talk about exercise. That is a big umbrella. That's so many things. It's kind of where I get off on my pet peeves with, telling women, in those early weeks postpartum that they shouldn't exercise. Quote, okay, well, but we're moving. So why don't we include movement that can be effective for our pelvic floor, for our back, for our body, right? We have to be more clear on what we're talking about. And that's exactly the problem with some of the research. And they even say in some of the studies, it's hard because, what are the devices that they're using to measure back pain for someone, and someone's perceived pain can be different than someone else's perceived pain. And then what are the exercises or the specific movements that are being taught in those Pilates sessions? I can guarantee you, I could teach a class that I would say, if you got back issues, you should not take this class. And I can also form a class where I'm like, this is going to be the best class for your back, because in general, these are the things that are going to help to get that deep core on, help to create more space through your spine, and help you to feel better. So again, it's a very big umbrella. We have to be asking not just the type of exercise we're doing, but what are the movements? How are we breathing? And how are we moving? I'm going to kind of break some of this stuff down for you guys. And this is really going to go through the fundamentals of what I teach, whether it's in my core rehab program, my Knocked Up Fitness prenatal program, within my instructor training course. We just launched my Core Athletica Rehab Level 1, which I'm really excited to be out there, because it's something I believe in, whether someone's already a Pilates instructor or a personal trainer, or just interested in learning more about this or becoming an instructor themselves. That course of mine, I'm going into the fundamentals of basically what all of my stuff is built on. I think it's really, really incredible. I think it's information that we need to get out there in the movement world, for example. Okay. So let's talk about, kind of in line with all this, why not all Pilates is created equal. And I have to say, there I said it, right? Pilates, again, is a very umbrella term because, well, what are we teaching within that Pilates umbrella? And this is many times why you'll hear me say what I teach is Pilates infused, because yes, I teach Pilates. A lot of the movements I teach, if you've done Pilates in the past, you're going to recognize them, right? But you may have not done them the way that I teach you to do it. And that is the biggest difference, because what I've worked on with the exercises that I choose to teach is I then look at them, how can we make it even better so that we're making adjustments for that movement to be more effective for our deep core and our pelvic floor function? That to me is everything. And, sometimes I know movements can seem like too slow or too basic or too modified or simple, but here's what I'm going to tell all of you. If you don't know how to properly connect with that slower movement, then we have to slow down, because it's that slow down to speed up kind of idea. And I know it's really, really hard if you're someone who likes to the CrossFit, the really heavy weight training, the HIIT training. And again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with doing that type of training. I think what I teach is a very good complement to that. I just taught a pelvic floor workshop yesterday, and it's really fun. I love teaching this stuff to women. I love teaching it to all women, but I really love teaching it to women who are very athletic and have really just, gone hard with their workouts, because I love seeing the light bulb moments for them when they're like, oh, wow, this is so different. In many aspects, it's a 180 to the way that they've always been training their body. And again, what they've been doing, I'm not saying is bad, but what we want to look at is what's the purpose to the movement. So I had a pregnant mom in class. So for her, we talked about a lot of the things and why doing my Pilates infused movements, why the breathing, why, modifying things could be more beneficial than talking to a woman who hasn't had a baby yet and is really strong, but how can we become even stronger in all the right ways? It's the idea, I keep hearing people say, it's working from the inside out, which is a lot of what we're teaching. We can get really set in letting our big muscles do all the work. And again, a time and a place for that. Absolutely. But let's learn how to be more fascially connected through our body, which at the end of the day is the big fundamentals of what all my movement is going to teach you. So how do we get there? So I'm going to break some of this stuff down for you. And I want to start talking about pelvic positioning. So, a lot of traditional Pilates and other workout methodologies we are taught to have a tucked pelvis, that posterior tucked pelvic position. And I know a lot of you ladies listening are probably kind of stuck in that position because I see it all the time, especially in my core rehab program. We're untucking pelvises all the time. Now, with that said, just keep in mind, as I talk about these things, we have to work on transitioning our body and working on our postural shifts slowly. We have to remember to work with our body because our body doesn't like to be forced. Tissue does not like to be forced. We can want results yesterday. That's great. But if we're working with fascial adhesions, scar tissue, or movement and breathing mechanics, we have to work on all these fundamentals and in time, slowly work our body where we want it to go. So that's really hard for us in this go, 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 busy world, like squirrel world. Trust me, I get distracted. You guys all hear me. I go down my little rabbit hole sometimes. Hopefully it's beneficial and important to you when I do that. But keeping in mind that, we have to really slow down and work with our body. Okay. So back to my pelvic positioning, that tucked pelvis has been taught for a long time. It was taught in traditional Pilates, and there may be a time and a place for that. But here's the issue I have with it. If we are walking around, sitting around, doing all of our exercises with a tucked pelvic position all the time, it's putting pressure on your low back. It's putting pressure down on your pelvic floor. It's preventing you from standing nice and tall in your posture. It's preventing you from breathing optimally, and likely it could be contributing to neck pain, shoulder pain, knee pain, hip pain, pelvic floor pain, all of it, okay? We want to be striving more for a more neutral pelvis, right? And again, we're not striving for perfect posture. We are striving for what feels and works better for our body. So if we're walking around with a tucked pelvis and we've got pain, we likely need to work our pelvis out of that, right? Now, there's the flip side of that, where we have more of an anterior pelvis, where we're arched in our back a lot more, and we really tend to hang out forward in our back, right? I don't see that as often, but I still do see that. So in those instances, it's not about tucking your pelvis to bring you in. It's about getting that deep core to work. And where's our rib cage with our body? So these are all things that I talk about and teach through my Pilates infused movements, right? Because it's all about where are we trying to move our pelvis to, so that we can, again, a lot of times what happens, whether we're in a tucked pelvis or we are overly arched in our back, is we've got some massive restriction somewhere. So it could be deep in our glutes. We could be really tight in our pelvic floor. Again, you guys, I can't talk about back pain without talking about pelvic floor. It's not possible because it's all so interconnected. And if we are really pulling in our low back, for example, that tells me that we need to work on waking up, again, that pelvic floor deep core connection. Now, can we be too tight in our pelvic floor and not really feel our pelvic floor well? Absolutely. And a lot of women have this myth of like, oh, just do a bunch of Kegels. But again, my philosophy on that is it's creating more restriction versus sometimes we have to actually learn how to release and relax our pelvic floor and move more gently with our body, which leads me into my point 2 about breath. Breath is so important. I just mentioned a little bit ago about how, and when I teach a class, even though periodically I'll have everyone in a position where we're just laying on our stomach. Maybe it's right before we do a back exercise or right after. And I'm having them focus on breathing through their nose into their low back, because I'm teaching them how to get that tissue to chill the heck out so we get some expansion and release in your back. And everyone listening with back pain, like, I love this move to just lay on your stomach, breathe into your back. If you don't feel it today, that's okay. We have to start with where we are. And in time, it gets better and better. But when we do that breathing and we learn how to release that tissue and find that expansion with our breath, then we can start to get deeper into the deep core, which is going to help our spine so much, because we don't want to lead with our low back. Our low back should be there to help to stabilize our body. We shouldn't be cranking on our low back ever, in my opinion. And then when we talk about movements, Pilates movements, really, I mean, we could say with a lot of movements, especially when we're trying to bring the focus into our deep core, we want to work on creating more space through our body. So that's where you'll hear me talk about all the time: lengthen, lengthen, lengthen all the time, but don't pull with your low back. We want to lengthen from inside of our body, that gentle pelvic floor lift, that visual of like we're suspending our organs inside of our body. So our pelvic floor isn't doing all of the work because we have fascia that runs through our entire body. And when we start to see that, we start to visualize that, we start to understand that, it opens up this whole new potential for you to become so much stronger, so much more balanced, and start to say goodbye to that annoying back pain. Even if, I feel called to say this, even if there's scar tissue, even if you have had back surgery, all of those things, that can all be worked with, and it should be worked with. Now, if you had back stuff for a very long time, it could take a little bit longer, but then at the same time, I have worked with a lot of women who've been in pain for well over a decade. And in a fairly short period of time, like sometimes even within a couple days, they're like, oh my gosh, I have so much more relief in my back now than I've had in a decade, which always blows my mind. But I love it. Absolutely love it. It's so fun, which is why point number 3, we have to slow down, you guys. We have to slow down when we move. It's been so ingrained in us from such a young age, like agility and speed and go fast with your movements, But if we actually slow it down, which is really hard for our brain, our busy, go brain. And when you guys realize this, that's kind of what's fighting it when you have a hard time, that's okay. Just acknowledge and be like, that's okay. Okay. So my body's kind of fighting this because we want to move through. We want to get it done, right? How many times are we doing our movements and we're like, okay, we're here. We're just going through the motion and we want to get it done. And, maybe some days that's better than not doing it at all, for sure. But when you can, I encourage you, slow your movement down, move with your breath. And in the beginning, who cares if your breath gets off, right? There's the ideal way that I teach you, and it does matter. But sometimes, because when we're working on creating these new neural pathways of our brain, because a lot of what we're doing too, you guys, is it's retraining our brain and our body how to move, how to breathe, how to find these connections, as I like to call them, which is really our fascial connections in our body. So yes, we're working our muscular system because our fascia works or wraps all around all of our muscles, every single muscle spindle. It's really, really the piece that connects our body together. And when we slow down our movement, when we decrease our range of motion, that's also a big one. And when we modify exercises versus always feeling like, I want to move on to the next one, I want to move into that next progression, because I really feel like that's been taught a lot, even in the Pilates world, I'm going to say it. And I pull people back all the time. I'm like, no, you're just not ready yet for that next advanced level, because we need to not master's not the right word, but we need to get better at the basics, at the breathing. And you guys, we can only speed up our progress so much. This is where consistency matters, like that daily practice, even if it's 10 or 15 minutes, but then taking the pieces you're learning when in the movement I teach you, whether you're in, one of my programs right now, or just listening to me for the first time, it's like, take a little nugget that you are learning from this episode today, or from the movement you're starting to learn or have been learning, and we apply that to the movement in our day. This is where we have to stop compartmentalize our exercise and our daily life. It's like, we're like, oh, we're going to go exercise for an hour. Okay, great. That's fine and all. But then if we go sit at our desk and we're like all slumped and rounded and have poor posture the rest of our day, well, we're not leading our body towards getting more optimal results for our body. So again, it's not about being perfect. You're going to catch yourself slouching. I catch myself slouching sometimes, right? It's going to happen. We get all into a project we're working on or whatever we're doing. You're allowed to relax. Okay. You're allowed to chill and not worry about your posture all the time. But what I want you to start to pay more attention to is taking these little nuggets and bring them into your daily life, because it can really help to skyrocket your results. And it helps. I don't really like the word speed up, but kind of we can use it here, because fascia at a cellular level, right? This is some of what we're working with when we're working on becoming stronger through our body, becoming stronger, the right kind of strong and balanced through our core, through our deep core, to help us get out of that back pain, is it also takes time to create fascial connections. At a cellular level, we can improve the way our fascia functions. We can create more fascia, which is, to me, is why we're able to get such amazing results. But it's also why sometimes we don't get results as fast as we want, because we have to keep reminding that tissue to work the way we want it to. And it needs that consistent reminder every day. And that's also why, again, just a simple thing of paying more attention to your posture throughout your day, breathing, like paying attention to how you're breathing throughout your day more often, bringing that awareness, all of those things can help us to create those fascial connections a little bit faster. But there's only so much we can do to speed it up. Now, I want to talk about lifting weights versus Pilates. And I was debating if I bring this up. I'm not going to call out who it was at this moment. I don't even remember who it was, but it was actually a little nugget that like inspired me to like, we have to talk about this on the podcast. And this lady was telling people like, oh, I love Pilates and all, that's great, but you know, do Pilates if you like it for fun, but you should really just be lifting weights. And I was like, wait a minute. Do you know how many people I've worked with over the years that are big weightlifters? And that's great. They're strong. We could throw men in this category. They're really strong. But then I bring them into my world and try to get their deep core to fire. And like a lot of them are dealing with back pain, right? And I'm trying to get their core to fire. I'm trying to get them out of their back. And they're really tight and restricted a lot of times in their mobility, or we might be doing things a little wonky in our form because they were taught a certain way. And again, I'm not saying it's wrong, but it doesn't really align with what I see works well when we're working on optimal function, right? Optimal movement, optimal function. And it's so cool to me when I get someone who, again, their only experience has been weightlifting, really hardcore working out, and we bring them in and get them to slow down and do all the things I already mentioned. It's hard in the beginning. It's really hard because when you're learning all these new things and it feels like a 180 to what we've done in the past. But time and time again, what I see is when we're just lifting weights and that's our history, that's all we know, that's fine. Just, don't be hard on yourself about it. But we have not really learned how to connect our body together. So when I get someone in Pilates initially, and whether they're doing mat work, with me, or they're doing reformer tower work with me, they want to muscle it. They really want to muscle through it. And a lot of times people initially are like, man, this, I didn't really feel a lot today. And then many times the next day they're like, oh, I felt some stuff I've never really felt before. It's that delayed kind of onset soreness or muscle onset soreness, right? That kind of kicks in 12, 24, 36 hours later. And it's not like it's bad, but it does show them that they were working deeper layers. But here's the thing, if we are just forcing us through the motion, we're muscling through the motion, we're not going to be learning and getting those good connections that we really want to be making. Okay. Now, the reason why I had an issue with this was because what I have seen that we can learn from Pilates, specifically how I teach Pilates, is that we learn how to connect our body together. And then we take that into our weight practice, our more high intensity training, we get stronger faster, even if it means initially decreasing our weight down. So when I heard that, it's like kind of hit a sore spot for me. And it just means just being very open, authentic about this. I am all for you all lifting weights. Please, especially women, well, and men too, I think we all should be lifting weights to be working to get stronger. But when I see it's like an all or none, I don't like that. Like ideally, I want people to learn from me and what I'm teaching. And this is why, I want people to work back, especially if we've got dysfunction and pain and back pain. Like, yeah, temporarily we might need a halt on our heavy training, on our intense training, because that's just working against us. But my goal for you is to get you back there and then some, right? And skyrocket past it. But you keep these fundamentals in with your training. We don't just forget them. We have now learned a whole new way of breathing and moving our body and connecting, that then our weight training becomes even more effective for our body. That's my goal for you guys. Okay. So I want to be very clear. I am never, ever going to tell someone we shouldn't be lifting weights. If I ever tell someone, it's usually pausing. Like I want you to pause that. I always say it that way because I want you to get back to that. But sometimes we have to slow down to speed up so that we can retrain our body to become stronger in all the right ways. Because yes, we should be lifting weights. But also that said, when you're doing the techniques the way that I teach you with movements, you are getting stronger. And so I think there's and this is why I get so passionate on the instructor side of things and teaching instructors, that I feel like we have to just change that mindset a little bit and really recognize, kind of what we're saying to people. And for me, I want to empower all of you. Even if today you're out there, you've never done anything for me and you're listening to this and you're like, I love my high intensity training. I feel so good. I get that, adrenaline kick. Great. But just recognize, like, when we can start to work this training in, you can actually make your weight training even more effective. And plus, it's good to do variety, especially as we get older, right? We want to have variety, and we don't want to be doing things that are potentially causing injury or lifting too heavy. There is such a thing as lifting too heavy, you guys. And then there's some of you that are listening that are like, Eric, I've had to stop my weightlifting because of my back or my pelvic floor, or insert whatever, or you had a health thing come up. It doesn't matter. But if that's something you want to get back to, I'm a firm believer that you can all get back to doing the things you want to do in life. Maybe that's just going hiking. Maybe you're like, yeah, I actually should probably weight train and I'm not, which, I would encourage you to do. Again, even body weight, we discount body weight and doing things that can be so powerful for our body. At the end of the day, it's moving, but working on moving better. So we're working to prevent aches and pains, pelvic floor dysfunction. We're working to get rid of aches and pains, pelvic floor dysfunction. And again, back pain is just one of those things that slows a lot of us down. And I know so many times we don't think, we think, it's not going to bother us till we get older. I work with a lot of 20, 30, 40-year-old moms that have back pain. And just the other day, I had a client say that, she was told she'd have to have back surgery to get her back pain to go away. And guess what? In a week, or after session 1 working with her, her back pain was so much better. And after 2 sessions, she's like, I now haven't had back pain since, session number 2. So to me, I was so excited like that, because I'm like, we just saved her a lot of potential, like getting weaker and scar tissue and having to go through all of that trauma for our body, when many times we don't have to, because we have to just work on rebalancing the body in the right way and moving from our deep core. Okay, one last thing I want to address is the difference between mat and reformer tower Pilates, because I think some people are like, well, which is better, mat, reformer, or tower? Neither are necessarily like better, but what is the difference? So sometimes people will say, well, mat actually feels a lot harder because I don't get any assistance with the springs. And in many cases, I would tend to agree with that, because you have to put your body in the position and you really have to listen to the cues. Everything that I teach online is all mat-based, right? It works really, 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 really well. I do have a little bit of reformer stuff in the prenatal, and I have had requests for it. So you guys will see, it's on my to-do list. We'll see if we can't get some reformer tower Pilates stuff for other programs. So if you guys that are listening are interested in that, let me know, so I know if it's something that you guys want. But with reformer tower Pilates, it's all spring resistance. It taps into your fascial system. I feel like it can help you. Again, I hate using the word speed, but I do feel like it can help to kind of speed up the feelings to your body, because we can add assistance with resistance where your body might need some more support. We can also add resistance where you need more resistance to push with. So I personally and trust me, in my classes still with Reformer Tower, I will weave in some mat stuff, because there are just some really good mat ones I teach in my programs that I absolutely love. I love giving you guys homework. You guys know that. So you have things to do in between sessions. So anyone that's listening locally that comes to my classes, it's like, okay, if we do a mat one, well, you can do that at home, and just keep working on getting stronger in between sessions. And then you come and we just keep working to advance you. But that's my biggest thing. I love Reformer Tower because we get that spring resistance, and it always excites me working with people with back pain, because again, kind of back to where we opened this conversation talking about research, right? I could teach a class that I'd be like, if you've got, or I'll teach an exercise sometimes, and I will specifically remind and ask anyone who has back stuff going on that you're going to do the modification for this exercise. And I think that is so important. And that's actually a piece I'd really love to see more of in the fitness industry. I hear and I see this from other modalities where it's someone's like, I'd like to go to that class, but it was just like too intense for me last time. And it's because we need to learn to modify. And also for every single one of you, I want to empower you. You know your body better than anyone else. And I reiterate this all the time to my clients that whether you're in a class or if you're doing a private with me or whatever it is, if your body is saying, I'm not sure about this movement, and maybe it was one that felt good for you last time, but this time, because maybe you've been more stressed or you've been sitting more or whatever, you've just got back from traveling. I always see people's backs are more restricted when they've been sitting, traveling, flying. You get dehydrated more when you fly, especially. So taking that precaution for your body and say, hey, can I modify this today? Just knowing your body and being like, today, even though you've done this before, I feel like so many times we have that competitiveness in us, like, oh, well, I want to do this because it looks fun and everyone else is doing it. But at the end of the day, if it's not the right move for your body today, why are we doing it? And that's one really big thing in my Pilates studio. I'm like, you guys, I want you guys know your body better than I do. Like I obviously, as I'm getting to learn everybody and those that I get to fortunate enough to do privates with, I get to know a lot better. But I really reiterate to people, I've got some clients that they have their own little warm-up routine. We might be doing something else in class, but for their back or what's going on with their body for right now, they have their little routine and they're going to do that because that's optimally what they need. And that for me is a dream of really putting that more into fitness because I don't see it all as a one size fits all. We're all dealing with something a little bit different. The fundamentals are going to be the same really across the board. And then it's working on those movements. Like even in core rehab, we'll see it. And I try to reiterate this all the time is we know the program works the way it's designed. I've been teaching it now. It's been online for 7 years. Yeah, more than that almost now. And there are like those key things that work for like almost everybody. And then every once in a while, someone's got something else going on. And that's why I do those coaching calls. You guys are so valuable to be able to hop on, tell me what's going on so I can help give you a little bit more personalized, like, okay, well, do more of whatever it is first. Sometimes people need to do something to get their back to chill out before we can get that deep core to start to fire. And sometimes people are really good at just going right into whatever that movement is for the day. And everyone's bodies are different, right? It's so hard sometimes we just want to like progress on really fast. And many times that's not what our body is really allowing us to do. And sometimes it can feel like a couple steps forward. And then occasionally there's a little step back. And when we can learn to finesse and go with the flow and work with our body and say, hey, you know what? My body needs to modify more today. Or if you're in my core rehab program, you go back and maybe, you know what? Today I need to go back and do something that could look as like a simpler exercise or a simpler workout. But if that's what your body needs, that's what your body needs. I think we all need to be, I don't know, just talking about this more. Okay, you guys, I'm going to wrap this up. I know you keep talking about this like forever and I'll go down too many rabbit holes for all of you. But I just want to say thank you so much for all of you tuning in today. As always, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. You can always find me on Instagram at Erica Zeal. If you're local, my Instagram is Core Athletica Studio and Facebook is Core Athletica. So you guys can learn more about what we're doing at the studio. I love teaching workshops there. I love getting to work with those of you that are local. I love it. Absolutely love it. It lights me up every single day to get to teach, whether I'm teaching with you in person or those of you that get to join me online. It's so fun. It's so exciting. I love this work. So grateful that I get to do all of this. And we just continue to help you all to feel a little bit better every single day. So as always, reach out if you have any questions and I cannot wait to see you back next week. See you guys. Have a great week.